Now, as promised, we've moved on to the behind-the-scenes featurette of LarryBoy and the Bad Apple. But this time, since this featurette has a bigger runtime than the other two featurettes that I've talked about so far in Vlogs Month, I decided to do a top 12 list instead of a top 5. Believe me, there's much to cover on this one. Now for number 12 is that the featurette is a two-parter. It's not a big deal in my book, just worth mentioning. One of them is called Rebuilding Bumbleyburg, which talks about the technological side of the production. Both of those videos are fun to watch, so be sure to check them out if you have the DVD. Now for number 11 is that Tim Hodge talks about getting to play a character in the movie. Not only does he direct this movie, but he also plays Curly, the Bad Apple's henchman. Honestly, he plays that character really well, so kudos to that guy, especially since he talked about how he wanted to have a role in something like LarryBoy and the Bad Apple. Number 10 is the question that gets asked. What's your favorite type of chocolate? You know, I kinda like Mike's answer to that question.
If you put like chocolate and french fries in front of me, I tend to go for the french fries, you know, so the Larry side of me would go for the chocolate.
Number 9 is that a SAMSON-TYPE story was the original idea for this movie. For those of you who don't know, the biblical story of Samson was about a guy who had unbelievable strength that helped him fight bad guys. But a woman named Delilah cuts his long hair short, which makes him powerless. Why? Because he had broken his promise to God that he would never cut his hair. Now, going back to this movie, Big Idea originally wanted to mirror that same concept of the hero having so much power and then a trickster takes it from him. But in the end, the idea of temptation had won over the Samson story, and that's what they eventually went with. Next up at number 8, they show off their storyboarding. This part was kinda sort of a progression reel of a scene from the movie. However, they show it in steps. They show the hand-drawn version first, then the computer model version, and then ultimately the finished product. I thought that was pretty cool. By the way, in my next video, I'll probably analyze the progression reel of LarryBoy and the Rumorweed, where they have the hand-drawn and finished versions side by side just to give a comparison. Up at number 7 is that they used new technology for this movie. You'll hear much of the technological side of the movie in their Rebuilding their Bumbleyburg part of the featurette. This is where they show you a lot of the technological advances which helped make this movie possible. In fact, it was reported that the studio had to upgrade their computers because they were using old technology for the first 2 LarryBoy installments. I have nothing against the earlier technology because that was just a starting point for the LarryBoy universe and all that, but man, they came a long way since then. Now for number 6, I gotta hand it to you. Props to art director Heather Gagnier. I hope I said your name right, I'm sorry if I butchered it. And she was from IDT Entertainment when this movie was in production. God, I love this woman. When she's demonstrating the character models that they use for Larry the Cucumber and LarryBoy, and when she's showing us some of the sets by detail, I'm just at awe. In my mind, I'm thinking, wow, this all looks amazing. Having talented people like Heather work on this movie is so awesome. Big thanks to everyone, by the way, that worked hard on this movie. It's much appreciated. I would definitely add this to the resume if I were y'all. Now for number 5 is how much emphasis that they put into character design. I didn't notice it at first, but then I understood it once I saw the featurette. As I mentioned earlier, the studio had to upgrade their technology, but by doing so, they had to make slight changes to LarryBoy. Instead of the belt being completely horizontal around LarryBoy's waist, again, I never thought of it until they showed me. They made the belt tilted so that it would accommodate to its flexibility whenever he's swinging through town. A slight change, but it works out great at the end. Another example of emphasizing character design is when they talk about the Bad Apple's spider legs. They make sure to be perfectly clear that the legs shouldn't be too pointy so that they wouldn't scare kids. Now that's understandable. I like that. Up at number 4 is explaining LarryBoy's workouts and stunts. Mike will tell you how that is. Why? Because it's Mikey Rocky. He's played Larry the Cucumber and LarryBoy for years. I only put this one on the list because it's a pretty fun fact. I like it.
Larry trains for months before doing any LarryBoy episode, you know, with his super suction sit-ups and, you know, he does Stairmaster and bench press, of course, and he does all his own stunts.
Number 3 is that I never thought that this movie had 2 climaxes. When describing the movie, it's fun to hear the studio talk about it, but then something surprised me. The movie is said to have 2 climaxes. Oh, but LarryBoy Fanatic, a story only has 1 climax. Well, I thought so too for a long time, actually. But when I was looking up how many climaxes that a story could have, I was shocked. You could actually have more than 1 climax in your story. And they explain it here in the featurette, with the first climax being LarryBoy realizing what temptation is doing to him, and then the second one being the quote-unquote physical climax where the hero is fighting the bad guy. It all makes sense now, doesn't it? Going on to number 2 is that temptation is constantly talked about in the featurette. Well, I don't blame them for talking about it. It is the theme of the movie. As you hear them talk about the theme of the movie, you'll realize that the theme goes extremely well with the story. In other words, the theme doesn't seem tacked on like other movies. I seriously hope that the next LarryBoy project they do, they'll have a theme just as good as this one. And finally, for number 1, is the quote, no shortage of ideas. The studio will tell you straight up that there was no shortage of ideas when it came to making this movie.
There was no shortage of ideas of things we could do, and gadgets we could make for LarryBoy, and vehicles. And
I've always enjoyed LarryBoy. LarryBoy is a fun character to work with.
I'd love to come back to Bumbleberg as soon as possible.
I've always enjoyed LarryBoy, and I wanted to bring him back. It was fun to get the chance.
When you have people in the studio tell you how much fun they had working on a movie, and then seeing that the movie is really good, it lets you know that they're not lying. This movie was really good to watch, and I'm very happy that they had fun working on it. So now we know, now we have that confirmation that a lot of effort was put into this movie. This was where imaginations ran wild and people were saying, oh, we should do this, or how about this? And they just went with it. Again, no shortage of ideas. That's what a movie should feel like. If you enjoy making a movie, then it'll most likely turn out good. If you didn't enjoy it, then the movie's gonna come out sour. But in this case, this movie was made with love, and it showed throughout the runtime. If a movie had this much fun and this much effort put into production, then why can't you guys do that? Or you?